He sent me a message. Dad, I know you bought us a house, but my mother-in-law said you won't be here for Thanksgiving. I answered with just one word. Fine. That night, I stopped being the man everyone could depend on for every dollar they wanted. The next morning, I took the house back. Then I took back everything I had ever given them. And finally, I made one last decision, a decision they still have not recovered from. Nobody believed that the quiet father, the one who was always willing to help, could ever do something like that, least of all my own family. Before we go any further, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling me what time it is where you are right now. The leather folder rested on the passenger seat of my truck like a prize. I had just walked out of the notary's office on Central Avenue. Every document had been signed, stamped, and officially completed. Nearly $485,000 worth of kindness was packed into 20 pages of legal paperwork. My house, well, what used to be my house. Soon it would belong to Michael and Jennifer after the 30-day waiting period ended. It was the biggest gift I had ever given another person. I drove north on Interstate 10, my hands relaxed on the steering wheel, the windows slightly open so the cool November air could drift inside. Phoenix looked beautiful that afternoon. The sky was the deep, bright blue that only Arizona seems to have in the fall. I had spent 5 years preparing for this day. 5 years of choosing frozen dinners instead of expensive steaks. 5 years of driving the same old pickup instead of buying something newer. 5 years of giving up the fishing trip to Alaska I had promised myself after selling my construction company. Every extra dollar had been saved for one purpose, to give my son a fresh beginning, something secure, something permanent, something that would help him build a better future. Whole Foods on Camelback Road was not where I normally shopped. It cost too much, and it was usually crowded with people filling carts with expensive organic food they probably photographed before they even tasted it. But Thanksgiving was different. I wanted the best ingredients I could find. I had planned every dish for weeks. Herb-roasted turkey, my mother's cornbread stuffing recipe, honey-glazed carrots because Jennifer had mentioned liking them 3 years earlier. I had even written down every ingredient on a list so I wouldn't leave anything behind. The produce section smelled fresh, almost like wet soil after rain. I stood there comparing different yams when my phone vibrated in my pocket. Seeing Michael's name on the screen made me smile immediately. Maybe he wanted to confirm what time I should come over on Thursday. Maybe Jennifer wanted me to bring another dessert or had thought of another side dish she liked. I opened the message. Then I read it again. Then a third time. I kept waiting for the words to somehow change into something reasonable. Dad, I know you just bought us the house, but my mother-in-law doesn't want you coming to Thanksgiving dinner. Jennifer thinks it's better this way. We'll see you another time. My thumb stayed frozen over the screen. Around me, families pushed shopping carts filled with everything they needed for their own Thanksgiving meals. A husband and wife stood arguing over whether a 16-pound turkey would be enough. 2 young children debated which pie their grandmother liked more. Everyone around me looked normal, happy, busy getting ready for a holiday with people who actually wanted them there. I started typing. After everything I've done for you? After signing over a house today? You're choosing her mother over your own father? I erased every word. Then I typed something else. I deserve better than this. Deleted that too. Then another message. We need to talk. That disappeared as well. The phone suddenly felt slippery in my hand. 5 years earlier, I had paid for Michael's wedding. $35,000 for the ceremony Jennifer wanted because her parents simply couldn't afford it. I had paid for their honeymoon in Bali. I had loaned Michael $15,000 so he could buy a new car. He promised he would pay me back within 6 months. That had been 3 years ago. Not $1 had ever come back. Later, I covered $8,000 in credit card debt after he called it just a temporary rough patch. When they rented their first apartment together, Jennifer wanted everything brand new, nothing used, nothing from my garage, nothing from thrift stores. So I spent another $12,000 buying furniture, appliances, decorations, and everything else they wanted. Every single time they asked, I helped. Every single time I believed things would get better. And now Patricia, a woman I had never even met, had decided I was not welcome at Thanksgiving, not in the house I had just bought for her daughter. "Excuse me, sir, are you okay?" You don't look very well. An older woman stood beside me with a worried expression. Her shopping cart was overflowing with food. A family photo decorated the back of her phone. I'm fine, I answered. Even to my own ears, my voice sounded strange, almost robotic. I just remembered something. I looked back at my phone. The message box was empty. The blinking cursor waited for me to say something meaningful. Instead, I typed a single word. Okay. I pressed send. Then I left my shopping cart exactly where it stood. The yams, the herbs, everything I had carefully picked out. None of it mattered anymore. I walked through the automatic doors and out into the parking lot. The afternoon sunlight felt different now. Too bright, too cold somehow, too uncaring. I climbed into my truck and placed the leather folder on top of the dashboard. 20 pages. 5 years of sacrifice. 1 text message. That was all it had taken. I grabbed the steering wheel so tightly that I didn't notice the pressure until I heard a tiny crack. The corner of my phone's screen protector had broken. The crack slowly spread across the glass like a thin frozen river. Small, permanent, impossible to ignore. I stayed parked there for 15 minutes, maybe 20. Time stopped making sense. Cars came and went. Families loaded groceries into trunks. Others arrived smiling, ready to shop. Inside the store, I could still see people walking through the aisles, planning meals with people who wanted them sitting at the table. My phone vibrated again. Michael was calling. His name flashed across the screen, once, twice, 3 times. Eventually, the ringing stopped. Missed call. I knew he would call again. He always called when he needed something. I started the engine but didn't put the truck into gear. Instead, I simply listened to the engine idling while staring at the leather folder. Inside those papers was the transfer of ownership for a house I had bought using retirement savings, pension money, and the profit from the construction company I had spent 30 years building from the ground up. 3 decades of work, thousands of early mornings, countless late nights, years of stress, all handed over to a son who could not even defend his own father enough to invite him to Thanksgiving dinner. We'll see you another time. That was the exact wording. No apology, no explanation. Not even his own opinion, just Jennifer thinks. When had Michael stopped making his own decisions? When had my opinion become less important than Patricia's? I had never met her, never shaken her hand, never heard her voice. Yet somehow she had enough influence to remove me from a family holiday, from a house I had paid for. Well, it wasn't really my house anymore, or at least that was what I believed. I had signed everything. The transfer would become official after 30 days. The gift had already been made. The intention was clear. I had spent years playing the role of the generous father, the dependable dad, the emergency bank account, the person everyone contacted whenever money became a problem, whenever Michael sent a message saying things were difficult, whenever another unexpected expense appeared, whenever Jennifer felt stressed, whenever life became inconvenient. I always solved it. I always reached into my savings. I always believed helping was what fathers were supposed to do. But how many temporary problems eventually become permanent expectations? How many acts of kindness slowly turn into obligations? How many gifts does someone receive before they stop feeling grateful altogether? I shifted into reverse, then stopped. Without really thinking, I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out the folder again. I opened it. My eyes scanned the first page. The legal wording was long, formal, and difficult to read. Then I remembered something the notary had mentioned while sliding the papers across the table. There is a standard 30-day completion period before ownership becomes final. During that period, under certain legal conditions, the transfer may still be revoked. At the time, I had barely listened. I had been too proud, too happy, too excited about surprising my son. But now those words sounded completely different. 30 days. Revocable. I quietly closed the folder, placed it back on the dashboard, then shifted the truck into drive. I pulled out of the Whole Foods parking lot without buying a single thing. Past the rows of parked cars, past families carrying grocery bags, past people laughing as they prepared for celebrations with those who appreciated them. I drove home in complete silence. The house was dark except for one room, my office. I had always kept detailed financial records. Running gray construction for 30 years had taught me that every dollar needed to be tracked. Every receipt mattered. every payment had a purpose. Good records often meant the difference between making money and losing everything. That habit had never left me. Within an hour, my desk was completely covered. Bank statements, canceled checks, loan agreements, receipts, tax documents, printed emails, screenshots of old text conversations. Each one told the same story. Dad, I hate asking again, but just until next payday. We're really struggling this month. Jennifer's worried about money. It's only temporary. You know I'll pay you back. The promises all sounded familiar. The repayments never came. I started organizing everything by date. Most recent first, then older still. The clock showed 11 that night when I began. Sleep wasn't even a possibility. My mind was racing too fast. I worked backward through years of records, carefully adding every dollar I had given them. 500 here, 2,000 there. 15,000 for the car, 8,000 for the credit cards, 35,000 for the wedding, 12,000 for furniture, vacation money, medical bills, moving expenses, security deposits, emergency repairs, birthday gifts, Christmas presents, cash slipped into birthday cards, money transferred directly into Michael's account after midnight because he said it couldn't wait until morning. The total kept growing. 10 pages of notes became 15. 15 became 20. By 2 o'clock in the morning, I finally leaned back in my chair and stared at the calculator. The number looking back at me was much larger than I had ever imagined. For years, I had told myself I was simply helping my son, helping family, doing what any good father would do. But the numbers didn't tell the story of generosity anymore. They told the story of dependence. They told the story of expectations. They told the story of a man who had spent years believing love meant saying yes every single time. Then one simple text message had shown me exactly how much all of that generosity had been worth. One seat at the Thanksgiving table. Michael's voice carried a confidence I hadn't heard in years. I swear on everything I have left, which honestly isn't much, that I'll prove I'm worthy of being your son. I stood up and reached out my hand for a handshake, not a hug. Then we'll begin with something simple. Coffee next week, a public place, 1 hour. We'll see where things go from there. Michael took my hand, and gratitude filled his face. Thank you, Dad, for not giving up on me completely. I paused near the door before leaving. I gave up on the son you used to be. I'm willing to meet the son you're trying to become. Don't make me regret it. I watched him walk toward his modest Honda. His shoulders looked lighter than they had when he first arrived. The conversation that was supposed to last 5 minutes had stretched into 20, yet I didn't regret a single minute. Coffee next week would be the real test. Would he arrive on time? Would he be honest when there wasn't a crisis forcing him to be? Would his actions match his promises? As I drove home, I felt something I hadn't experienced for a long time. It wasn't exactly hope. It was simply the feeling that maybe things could still change. For now, that was enough. The next 3 weeks passed with slow but steady progress. We met for coffee twice, both times in public cafes, both meetings lasting exactly 1 hour. Neither of us tried to rush the process. Then we had lunch together. Michael talked openly about counseling and everything he was learning. Jennifer admitted she had finally started recognizing the manipulation tactics her mother had used for years. None of it erased the past, but every small step mattered. Now there was another step waiting. Dinner at their apartment. The invitation came from Michael. Jennifer was doing the cooking. Only 3 people would be there. Patricia had been clearly and permanently left off the guest list. Their apartment building looked worn under the evening sky. The parking lot was filled with older cars that had clearly seen better days. Michael's simple Honda sat in space number 217. No luxury SUV, no expensive Lexus, just an ordinary car owned by ordinary people rebuilding an ordinary life. I climbed the outside stairs carrying nothing. No bottle of wine, no flowers, no gifts. This wasn't a celebration. It was a careful attempt to rebuild trust. Jennifer opened the door before I had the chance to knock. She had obviously been watching through the peephole. Stanley, her smile was warm, though I could see the nervousness in her eyes. Thank you for coming. I know this isn't easy for you. Please come inside. The apartment itself quietly revealed the cost of their choices. Affordable IKEA furniture had replaced the expensive designer pieces they once proudly displayed. The walls were mostly empty where costly artwork had once hung. The dining table was a simple folding table with 3 mismatched plates that clearly came from discount stores. Nothing matched. Nothing looked impressive. Everything reflected people who had learned humility through hard experience. "It isn't fancy, Dad," Michael said as he placed a serving dish on the table. "We're adjusting to a different life now. But I guess it's the company that matters most." I nodded. Fancy never mattered to me. I looked around the room. Respect did. Dinner itself was simple: roasted chicken, rice, steamed vegetables. Jennifer's hands shook slightly as she served each plate. Not because she was afraid, because she understood how much this dinner meant. It wasn't just another family meal. It represented either the beginning of healing or the end of any chance they had left. Halfway through dinner, Jennifer quietly placed her fork on her plate. "Stanley, there's something I need to say." She took a slow breath. "I should have said this months ago." She looked directly at me. "I'm sorry." She paused before continuing. "Not only for excluding you from Thanksgiving, even though that was completely wrong. I'm sorry for years of taking your kindness for granted. I allowed my mother to twist the way I saw you. She convinced me you were controlling when in reality you were simply a father who deeply loved his son. I treated every gift you gave us like something you owed us. I treated your help like it was our right. I acted as though your presence was an inconvenience. I was wrong. And I'm ashamed of the person I became." I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I watched her carefully. Her eyes, her posture, her voice. I wanted to know whether this was practiced or genuine. "What changed, Jennifer?" I asked calmly. "The consequences? Or your understanding?" She answered without hesitation. "Both. I won't pretend losing everything suddenly turned me into a better person overnight. It was terrifying. It was humiliating. It forced me to face who I had become. The counseling helped. Michael helped. And seeing my mother's manipulation from outside, her influence opened my eyes. I finally realized I'd traded your respect for her approval. And her approval was never worth anything." Michael gently reached over and held Jennifer's hand. "Dad," he said quietly, "you taught me something these past few months that I should have understood years ago. I always believed strength meant providing for everyone. But now I understand that sometimes real strength means refusing to keep providing. You protected your dignity by walking away from people who didn't value you. I want to become that kind of man." I slowly placed my fork down. Both of them had my full attention. "I appreciate everything you've said. I truly do. But there's something both of you need to understand." I waited until they were looking directly at me. "This is your last chance. I'm 62 years old. I don't have another 20 years to wait and see whether you've truly changed. If I'm fortunate, maybe I have 20 good years left. I refuse to spend those years being used. I refuse to spend them being manipulated. And I refuse to spend them being disrespected." I looked at Jennifer. "I care about both of you." "Yes, Jennifer. Even you. You're my son's wife. And I can see that you're honestly trying to become a better person. But love doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. It doesn't mean ignoring bad behavior. If either of you returns to your old habits, if the disrespect starts again, if the manipulation returns, I'm finished. No dramatic arguments, no long speeches, no second debate, just firm boundaries that won't move." Neither of them rushed to answer. For nearly half a minute, the room remained completely silent. Neither defended themselves, neither made emotional promises. They simply absorbed what I had said. That silence convinced me more than any speech could have. Finally, Jennifer spoke. "We understand. You shouldn't even have to say those words. But we've earned that warning." Michael nodded. "You'll see the difference, Dad. Not through promises, through actions. We're going to prove that we're worth having in your life again." I looked at both of them. "That's exactly why I'm here tonight. Because I want to believe that's possible. Now keep showing me." The conversation gradually became lighter. Michael asked how I'd been spending my time now that I wasn't constantly solving their problems. I smiled slightly. Well, I bought some property. Both of them looked surprised. A small cabin in the mountains near Prescott. Nothing luxurious, just somewhere peaceful. A place where I can get away from everything. I've been learning to spend time with people who truly value me. I smiled again. As it turns out, that's a much shorter list than I once believed. But quality has always mattered more than quantity. Jennifer's curiosity seemed sincere. That actually sounds perfect for you. Quiet. Private. Peaceful. She hesitated before asking, "Do you think one day you might invite us there?" I answered honestly. Maybe. Someday. If we reach that point. Right now, it's a place for people I completely trust. And trust is still something we're rebuilding. But unlike 2 months ago, I can finally say it's possible. Dinner ended peacefully. As I prepared to leave, Michael extended his hand once more. "Same time next month?" He smiled. "Jennifer makes a pretty good pot roast." I shook his hand. Still no hug. "Not yet. Next month. We'll see. One dinner at a time." Jennifer walked me to the door. "Thank you for giving us another chance. We won't waste it." I looked at both of them. "Make sure you don't." The drive home through the quiet streets of Phoenix felt different. The windows were rolled down. Cool January air filled the car. The revenge had accomplished exactly what it needed to accomplish. It hadn't been about destroying them. It had been about teaching accountability. It had been about restoring my self-respect. It had been about creating healthy boundaries that protected my peace. The previous week, Robert had helped me update my will. Michael was still my heir. But this time, everything included safeguards, trust conditions, and legal protections that would prevent history from repeating itself. The purchase of the mountain cabin had officially been completed the day before. It wasn't just another piece of property. It represented freedom. It represented independence. It represented a life built according to my own choices. Our contact would continue, but carefully. Monthly dinners, occasional coffee, conversations that grew naturally. No financial dependence, no unhealthy obligations, no blurred boundaries. Patricia remained completely excluded from my life. Jennifer had cut off contact with her mother, and Patricia had slowly become nothing more than a distant memory. For the first time in a very long while, I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel victory. What I felt was peace. Not because I had taken revenge, but because I had regained my dignity. I had finally learned how important boundaries really are. I had learned that respecting yourself sometimes means walking away. I had learned that kindness should never require accepting disrespect. Most importantly, I had learned that building a peaceful life sometimes means choosing carefully who is allowed to be part of it. The mountain cabin would be waiting for me the following weekend. My place, my rules, my peace. One day, perhaps, Michael and Jennifer might earn an invitation. Tonight showed they were moving in the right direction. Only time would decide whether they truly deserved it. Real trust isn't rebuilt through one conversation. It isn't repaired by one apology. It grows through consistent actions repeated over time. As I pulled into my driveway, I realized the hardest lesson of my life had finally become clear. Sometimes loving someone means letting them face the consequences of their own choices. Sometimes protecting your dignity means walking away, even when it hurts. And sometimes forgiveness isn't about forgetting the past. It's about allowing someone the chance to build a better future while never sacrificing your own self-respect again. That was the life I intended to live from now on. A life built on peace instead of pressure. On respect instead of obligation, on healthy boundaries instead of guilt. The future was no longer something I feared. It was something I could finally enjoy. And if Michael and Jennifer continued proving themselves through patience, honesty, and consistent actions, perhaps one day they would become part of that future in a meaningful way. Until then, every step would be earned, every visit would matter, every conversation would strengthen or weaken the trust between us. That was exactly how it should be. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps more people discover stories like this, and we'd love to hear what you think. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next story.